what if the reason you feel, completely stuck in your life right now has absolutely nothing to do with a lack of ambition? Like, what if it's just your brain running this faulty, hyperactive spam filter?
Oh, I love that analogy. A spam filter.
Right, because imagine you have this internal system that is just accidentally sending your most important life-changing opportunities straight into the junk folder, simply because it doesn't immediately recognize the sender.
Yeah, and you're just sitting there waiting.
Exactly. You sit there waiting for this giant neon sign to tell you what to do next, completely unaware that the actual directions have been, quietly sitting in your spam folder the entire time.
It is honestly a phenomenal way to frame the problem. Because we spend so much time searching for this massive, undeniable spark of inspiration. And in doing that, we completely ignore the subtle physiological signals that are actually trying to navigate us through our daily decisions.
Yeah, which brings us to today's topic. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive, diving into a stack of materials specifically curated for you. Today, we're exploring a set of excerpts surrounding this concept called the compass of excitement.
Right, which is the core component of what's known as the Bashar Formula.
Yes. And, for those who haven't dug into the origins of this source material, the Bashar framework originated in the 1980s as a channeled philosophical system. But, and this is important, regardless of your stance on the esoteric origins of the text, the psychological operating system it outlines is incredibly structured.
It really is. It's surprisingly practical.
Yeah. The entire philosophy basically boils down to this seemingly simple equation. Act on your highest excitement to the best of your ability with zero insistence on a specific outcome.
Which, sounds lovely on a motivational poster.
Right. Throw it on a sunset background.
Exactly. But as a functional strategy for making real-world decisions, it is notoriously difficult for people to actually execute.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before you can even begin to follow your excitement, you have to define what that word actually means. And according to the source material, our standard culturally ingrained definition of excitement is, well, it's functionally useless.
It really is. I mean, we expect excitement to be this overwhelming wave of euphoria.
Like someone jumping up and down on a couch,
No.
or a blaring siren that makes your life's purpose just incredibly obvious.
Right, but the text frames it completely differently. It states that excitement is not an explosive emotion. It is a directional signal.
A directional signal.
Yeah, it's a literal compass needle. And because it's a navigational tool, it is usually incredibly quiet. The text specifically notes that true excitement rarely appears as something obvious or loud. It's often just a very subtle pull.
Like a lingering curiosity.
Exactly. Or even just a random idea that keeps popping back into your head while you're washing the dishes. It doesn't scream at you. It simply nudges you toward a specific trajectory.
Which makes sense in theory, I mean. But I'm trying to figure out how to practically tell the difference in my own body. Because the source highlights a massive trap here.
Oh, the distraction trap.
Yes, because the signal is so subtle, people constantly confuse true excitement with a desire for comfort, or worse, with mindless distraction. Like, the text uses the specific example of scrolling on a phone.
All right.
It notes that endless scrolling might feel engaging in the moment, but it doesn't lead to growth. But, okay, I have to play devil's advocate, though.
Go for it.
When someone has had a grueling 10-hour workday, collapsing on the couch and picking up their phone feels like a genuine relief. It feels like exactly what their body is asking for. So how is that not a valid form of following what feels good in the moment?
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of what those two states, distraction versus genuine excitement, are actually doing to your nervous system.
Okay, lay that on me.
The key differentiator, according to the formula, is movement. Distraction, like endless phone scrolling or binge watching, acts as a numbing agent.
A numbing agent.
Right. It's a form of escapism that keeps you entirely stagnant. It keeps you safely anchored in your current reality, demanding absolutely nothing from you.
Zero stakes.
Exactly. True excitement, on the other hand, inherently propels you forward. Even if it's just a very subtle curiosity about, researching a strange new topic, it initiates momentum.
It asks something of you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because it requires movement into something new and unmapped, it naturally brings you right to the edge of discomfort.
So distraction is about escaping the present moment to avoid feeling overwhelmed. While true excitement is about moving forward into the next moment, even if that next moment carries a bit of risk.
Excitement asks you to step out of the familiar. Distraction begs you to stay safely hidden inside it. The difference isn't always in how big the action is, but in the trajectory of the energy. One contracts your world, the other expands it.
If true excitement inherently involves movement into the unknown, well, that completely explains the next major theme of our sources, because our brains are fundamentally wired to hate the unknown.
Oh, despise it.
We are biologically incentivized to crave certainty and predictability.
Because from an evolutionary standpoint, the unknown was a threat. Familiarity meant survival. So when your internal compass of excitement points toward a new hobby or a career shift or even just speaking up in a meeting,
Your mind does not cheer you on.
not at all. It treats that unfamiliar territory as a biological threat.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The source material points out the specific thoughts we generate when this resistance kicks in, because we don't usually run around screaming in terror about a new hobby, right?
No, we're much more sophisticated than that.
Right. Instead, we generate thoughts like, what if this doesn't work? Or I don't have time right now. Or the absolute classic, I need to do more research first.
I am so guilty of that one.
We all are. And the text points out that these are not logical conclusions, even though they sound incredibly rational.
They're deeply ingrained protective patterns. I mean, your prefrontal cortex, which is the logical planning part of your brain, is essentially inventing reasons to justify the amygdala's fear response.
Because the amygdala is freaking out.
Exactly. The amygdala feels the physiological arousal of excitement, which, biologically speaking, feels almost identical to anxiety.
Wait, really? Like the actual physical sensation is the same?
Pretty much. Elevated heart rate, a spike in adrenaline, a tightening in the chest. Your brain misinterprets the excitement as danger. So it immediately generates an executive function override. It masks the fear with rationality.
It's like my brain is putting on a three-piece suit, carrying a clipboard, and pretending to be this highly responsible financial advisor.
I love that visual.
Right. It tells me, now is simply not the most strategic time to start a podcast, but really underneath the suit, it's just a panicked caveman terrified of leaving the cave.
Yes, and this raises an important question. How often do we mistake our survival instincts for wisdom?
Oh, wow. That's, yeah.
We dress up our fear as logic because it makes us feel smart, responsible, and in control. The text crucially points out that when we say, I'll do it later, we are actively using the concept of time as a shield.
So we aren't managing our schedules.
No, we are managing our anxiety.
We're basically gaslighting ourselves.
We really are.
By prioritizing the illusion of logical certainty, we successfully silence the compass, we let the caveman drive the car, and we stay exactly where we are.
And the tragic part is that cuts us off from the exact growth the compass was trying to navigate us toward in the first place.
Okay, so let's assume someone listening to this deep dive right now realizes their "I don't have time" excuse is actually just the spam filter acting up. They recognize the protective pattern, they bypass it, and they decide to take action on their excitement anyway.
Awesome. Good for them.
But wait, according to the text, the moment we take action, we step right onto a landmine.
Yeah, the second trap.
We fall into this far more insidious trap of trying to control the exact outcome of that action.
Which is arguably the most challenging hurdle in the entire Bashar framework, because the formula explicitly states that a critical component of following your excitement is acting on it with zero insistence on a specific outcome.
And I am going to push back incredibly hard on this.
I figured you would.
Because society literally runs on KPIs, metrics, and measurable results. I mean, we're taught from kindergarten that you study for the test to get the A. You put in the extra hours to get the promotion. The action is entirely justified by the expected outcome.
That's the paradigm we live in, yes.
Right. So if I go to my boss and say, hey, I am going to launch this marketing campaign based on my excitement, but I am completely detaching from whether it makes us any money, I mean, I am getting fired.
Oh, immediately, yes.
So how can you ask a highly driven person to take action without caring what actually happens?
Well, it's a common misinterpretation to equate detaching from the outcome with not caring.
Okay, explain that.
It's not about apathy. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is about understanding the psychological mechanics of resistance and performance anxiety.
So it's about pressure.
Exactly. When you insist on one highly specific outcome, for example, like, if I start this business, it must make $1 million in year one or my effort was wasted, you immediately transform the action from a state of play into a state of intense pressure.
Because now the stakes are life or death. The action becomes a pass or fail test.
And what happens when we face a high-stakes test? Our stress response activates. From a neurobehavioral standpoint, rigid expectation creates massive cognitive friction.
We lose the fun of it.
We completely lose it.
Yeah.
We shift from intrinsic motivation doing the thing because the process itself is rewarding and exciting, to extrinsic motivation, where the only value is the reward at the end. When the action is merely a grueling means to an end, the action becomes a chore. You choke the natural flow of the effort.
So what does this all mean for how we actually navigate? Because if I'm visualizing this, trying to control the outcome is almost like looking at a map through a telescope.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You zoom in so intensely on one specific destination that you completely lose your peripheral vision. You might see the one difficult dirt road leading to your goal, but you are completely blind to the newly built superhighway sitting just 2 miles to your left.
That tunnel vision is exactly what the source warns against. The text explains that your conscious mind is remarkably limited.
Limited how?
Well, it can only predict outcomes based on what it has already experienced in the past. It's a tiny processor compared to the infinite variables of reality. When you rigidly lock on to the one specific result your mind was able to imagine, you are actively limiting the potential of what could happen.
You're boxing yourself in.
Exactly. You close the door to opportunities that might actually be far better than what you originally planned, simply because they don't match your incredibly narrow expectation.
So by dropping the insistence on a specific outcome, we aren't giving up our ambition.
Not at all.
We are actually just removing the friction. Excitement transforms from this rigid test into a flexible way to explore. You act on the excitement simply because the action moves you to a new vantage point.
Yes.
And from that new vantage point, you suddenly have access to new data, new connections, and new ideas that were completely invisible to you from the starting line.
You transition from trying to violently control life to actively collaborating with it.
I can see how that removes the pressure. But that brings us to the most practical, boots on the ground part of the source material.
How to?
Right. We're supposed to listen to a subtle signal, bypass our brain's highly convincing logical excuses, and completely let go of needing a specific result.
Yeah.
How do we actually execute this on a Tuesday morning without feeling completely paralyzed by the ambiguity of it all?
The source offers a profoundly simple solution, and it revolves entirely around the concept of scale.
Scale.
Yeah. People get paralyzed because they feel the need to map out a grand 5-year master plan based on a momentary spark of curiosity. The text explicitly advises against this. You have to simplify the approach.
So we have to drop the 5-year plan.
Drop it completely. True alignment isn't found in massive overarching strategies. The formula directs you to bring your focus entirely into the present moment and ask yourself one core question.
Which is?
What is the most exciting thing I can do right now to the best of my ability?
Right now, meaning today, in this exact hour. So if you are listening to this right now, feeling overwhelmed by a career choice or a life transition, the text insists you do not need to quit your job, sell your house, or overhaul your entire existence this afternoon.
Please don't do that. The answer to that core question rarely involves a massive leap. It is entirely about microactions.
Give me some examples.
The source provides examples like simply buying a domain name for an idea, reading a single chapter of a book on a new subject, reaching out to someone you find interesting, or just, taking 10 minutes to sketch out a concept.
So the grand elusive state of alignment that the source talks about, it isn't achieved through some heroic, terrifying leap into the void. It's literally just taking the very next tiny step, just sending one message.
Because you cannot steer a parked car. The magic is not in the magnitude of the action, the magic is in the momentum. It is basic physics.
Yeah.
By consistently choosing the most exciting microaction available to you at any given moment, you lower the barrier to entry so significantly that your amygdala doesn't have a reason to trigger the fear response.
Oh, you bypass the spam filter entirely.
Exactly.
You sneak the action past the caveman before he realizes what is happening.
Precisely. And as you string these tiny actions together, the momentum clarifies the signal. You're providing your internal compass with new data, allowing it to continually update your trajectory.
That is so freeing.
It is. And the text makes a beautiful point here. Alignment is not a state of external perfection where your life suddenly becomes a problem-free utopia.
Right, because that doesn't exist.
No. Alignment is a state of internal authenticity. It happens when your daily physical actions finally match what feels true to you internally. You stop fighting your own current.
You begin to build actual trust with your own signaling system. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire definition of what we are doing here.
How so?
Well, The formula isn't actually a strategy for chasing happiness or ensuring financial success. It is fundamentally a practice of learning how to trust the signal that points forward.
It is about trusting the compass over the map.
I love that. Let's pull all of this together and recap the major perspective shifts from the materials we've explored today.
That's good.
First, we have to redefine the signal itself. True excitement is rarely a loud, euphoric parade. It's a subtle, quiet compass needle that requires movement and pulls you forward into the unknown. Unlike distraction, which acts as a numbing agent to keep you stagnant.
Right. And second, those incredibly rational-sounding excuses your brain constantly generates, like, I need to do more research, are often just your brain's spam filter acting up. It's an executive function override masking your biological fear of the unknown as logical responsibility.
The caveman in a suit.
The caveman in a suit, exactly.
Yeah.
Third, we have to recognize and dismantle the outcomes trap. Detaching from a rigid result is not about apathy. It's about preventing performance anxiety and cognitive tunnel vision. It removes the friction, allowing you to actually see those peripheral opportunities.
And finally, you don't need a massive master plan. True alignment is built through consistent micro-actions. It is simply asking, what is the most interesting thing I can do right now? And taking that tiny step to create momentum.
Just one step at a time.
So for you listening, the most practical way to apply this deep dive starts today, simply by becoming a highly aware observer of your own behavior. Pay attention to those transition moments in your day. When you reflexively reach for your phone to scroll, or when you hesitate to send an email, pause.
Just pause.
Ask yourself, is this a desire for comfortable distraction, or is there a subtle pull of excitement pointing me somewhere else? Notice the physiological difference in how your body feels when it wants to hide versus when it wants to explore. And then challenge yourself with that core question.
What is the most exciting thing I can do right now?
Exactly. It might be taking a walk without your headphones, researching a weird piece of history, or finally starting that draft. Whatever it is, take the micro-action.
Watch how quickly the momentum shifts once you finally put the vehicle in drive.
Absolutely. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over as you go about your week. If true excitement is simply a directional signal meant to keep us moving, and we aren't supposed to insist on specific outcomes, well, what if our biggest, most painful failures aren't actually failures at all?
Oh, that's a big question.
What if a failed project, a rejected job application, or a relationship that didn't work out? What if that is just the compass successfully doing its job, guiding you firmly away from a dead-end path you were never meant to walk down in the first place?
Like a GPS.
Just like a GPS, quietly recalculating the route when you miss a turn. There's no panic and there is no wasted time. It simply updates, points you toward the next best step, and keeps you moving forward. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning your excuses, keep taking those micro actions, and above all, keep following your curiosity.